Hey, it's Robin from Rose and Lily. Today we're going to make this really cute flower keychain. This is a great pattern because it's really quick and it's really good to use as a last-minute gift for someone. First, you'll need some super chunky plush yarn in 3 colors. So for the front of the flower, for the back, and then for the petals. You'll also need a small amount of medium weight black yarn to embroider the mouth. Then you'll also need some small safety eyes, a USG crochet hook, yarn needle, scissors, polyfill, and then I also suggest using stitch markers and then a keychain if you want. The stitches you need to know beforehand are single crochet, double crochet, a magic ring, a chain stitch, slip stitch, and then also how to do an increase. We are going to start with the front of the flower, in whichever color you choose. In round 1, we are going to do 6 single crochet in a magic ring. I do have a tutorial on how I like to do the magic ring and I'll link that up above. In round 2, we are going to do 6 increases. So an increase is just 2 single crochet into the same stitch. So that means we do 2 single crochet into each stitch from round 1. That means in round 2 we now have 12 stitches. In round 3, we do a single crochet and then an increase. And we're going to do that 6 times in total, and that will bring us up to 18 stitches in round 3. Once you get to the end of round 3, you can remove the stitch marker and just close with a slip stitch into the next stitch. I'm going to put the stitch marker into that slip stitch because it will help us later. And then I'm also going to put a stitch marker in the first stitch of round 3. And that's this one over here. This will help later when we're crocheting the front and back of the flower together. Then we can just cut the yarn and pull through the tail. Now we can attach the eyes. Once you have them where you want, you can attach the backs. Now we're going to embroider the mouth using a small amount of black yarn. And I like to embroider the mouth going in one side and then through to the other side. And then go up where I want the bottom of the mouth to be. And just grab that first stitch we did. Then you can just shape out the mouth how you want. Now we can tie the tails together. And just cut them short to keep them out of the way. Now you'll do all of that again with the second color, but we won't be attaching the eyes or sewing on the mouth. So I've done my second circle with the stitch markers, and now we're going to attach them together. First, I'd like to take the tails from the magic rings and just tie them together, but not too tight because we are going to stuff them slightly. Once you've done a knot, you can cut the tails short to keep them out the way. Then I like to take the other two tails and tie them together as well. And then we'll cut these tails short as well. Now we can line up the two pieces to crochet together. And I like to do this with the marked stitches lining up. Now we will grab the color for the petals. And we're going to start by going through both marked stitches on the left. Now you can grab your yarn and pull through a loop. And then just do chain 1 to hold it in place. Now I'll just remove those leftmost stitch markers because we don't need them anymore. Starting in the next stitch, we'll do single crochets across both sides all the way around. But we'll stop before we reach the end so that we can stuff between the pieces. So I still have a few stitches left to do, and I'm just going to stuff it. And now we can do the last few single crochet up to the stitch markers. And here is the last single crochet into the marked stitches. Then we can remove the stitch markers. And now to close that gap, I just like to do a slip stitch into that first stitch we did. So that's the end of round 1. And next we'll start with the petals. So first I'm just going to mark the end of the last round with a stitch marker. In round 2 we start with a slip stitch. And then we chain 2. And then we do 3 double crochet into that same stitch. And then we chain 2 again and do a slip stitch into that same stitch where we did those double crochets. Then we skip the next stitch, which is this stitch over here. Then we repeat all of that. So a slip stitch, and then chain 2, and then 3 double crochet into that same stitch. Then we chain 2 and slip stitch back into the same stitch. And then we skip the next stitch. So we're going to do those same steps all the way around, which makes it 9 times in total for 9 petals. So now I've done my last petal and I can remove the stitch marker. Then we can cut the yarn. And now you can just shape out your petals. Lastly, you can attach the keychain if you want. And I'm just using this little claw hook. First, I like to knot the yarn tails together. If you aren't attaching the keychain, you can just weave in these ends. If you are attaching a keychain, you can use these yarn tails to make a few stitches around the end of the keychain. You can go over the stitch a few times to make sure it's secure. And once you're done, you can just weave in your ends. Now your completed flower keychain should look like this. I actually prefer using a slightly longer keychain, but it also works with a short one like this. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell.